Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Owner's Box After Dark. I'm your host, Mark Farinella, and that title grew on me after some thinking. Remember, I wasn't going to do it at first, but as you know, my series of audio podcasts are kind of on hiatus during the summer. But in the meantime, I thought I'd try my hand at some video snippets to tide me over and to tide you over. As I am now recording from an undisclosed location, I need something to while away the hours, and here you have it. Tonight's first topic. I just got through watching the latest episode of the new Perry Mason series on WHBO and on HBO. Can't edit these mistakes out like I can in audio. You know, it's quite something. I really enjoy it. It's an excellent period piece, and I've always been one who kind of enjoys period pieces as long as they're well done and you don't see 50-star flags showing up where there should be 48-star flags and all that kind of thing. It's much darker than the original television series, that's for sure. It's set about 25 years ago, years before the period of Raymond Burr's Perry Mason show. And that TV series appeared on CBS in the 1950s. Now, the producers say it's not a prequel to the television series. But you know what? It's okay with me because I think I can find a way to tie it all together. Now, I'm not really sure if it's more faithful to Earl Stanley Gardner's works because I never read them. I mean, I was a kid growing up. I watched the Perry Mason television series occasionally. I wasn't a big fan of it because I was a kid. Courtrooms, I didn't know. I loved Route 66. That was two guys in a Corvette driving all over the country. And believe me, that's the kind of show that appealed to my nature. And that's why I love getting in a car and driving all over creation now. But, I think we're certainly all familiar with the premise of the old series. I mean, Perry Mason was Raymond Burr, later became Ironside, and then also did some kind of regenerations of the old Perry Mason series, kind of like revisiting it many years down the road. And he never lost a case, it seems. Although I guess if you look it up, you'll find that maybe he lost 4 cases during the entire period of time that show was on the air. But it was set in the 1950s, as it certainly should have been because it was made in the 1950s. But you can sort of see, you can draw a line maybe from the character we're seeing now in this HBO series and the character that developed later. There is one thing I got to admit right off the bat. I'm having a hard time getting past the television series' theme song. I mean, it's so iconic, and it really had something to do with, you hear that and you think Perry Mason. There's no question about it. That's pretty cool, you got to admit. That was pretty cool. Okay, we haven't heard that in the new series, and I just have a feeling we're not going to. Unless they throw a curve at us in the last episode of this. I'm not even sure how many episodes it's going to be. I think it's 10. They might throw a curve at us at that point, but that would be funny if it did. But, take a look at the character as we see him now, played by Matthew Rhys, who is doing a great job. And you may obviously remember him from The Americans, which was a really, really good television series, and very underrated in many ways. I don't think it got the attention that it really deserved. But yeah, he's down on his luck. He's a lot younger, although he's a World War I veteran, and he's been out for a while. It's set in 1932, and so he's kind of like down on his luck. His family owned I guess a farm, a dairy farm, in a part of the outskirts of what is what becomes Los Angeles. And how come they never use the real 1930s pronunciation of it? Was they called it Los Angeles, if I'm not mistaken. I've heard that many times, but I figured we'd all be saying, "Well, that's a mistake. It's named Los Angeles." So anyway, his land is going to get turned into LAX probably at some point. There's an airport that borders it, and it's a funny thing about the owner of the airport and him. They have a relationship in this, and it's well, let's just say I won't describe it here. You can watch the show. If you watch it, you know what I'm talking about. It's I can't see Raymond Burr involved in this, but anyway. So you see a guy who has a lot of knowledge of the law, and he's smart, but he's just allowed his life to get in his way. But every now and then you see that moment of brilliance that he can figure things out, he can straighten everything out. And as we get deeper into this miniseries, and you see that the John Lithgow character, the older lawyer, I think tonight's episode ends with him sticking his head into a gas oven. So I'm assuming that's going to be it for him. But I think you can see at some point there will be an evolution of this character where he will use his knowledge and devote it to the law instead of being a private detective. But the detective skills are what are going to make him a great lawyer down the road. And that's kind of cool. So what I may miss from nostalgia's sake from the TV show that I grew up watching, that's the connection where I see this Perry Mason making with that Perry Mason, and it's kind of fun. I don't know if I can quite see this Perry Mason yet having the wherewithal to be able to solve every case in 45 minutes without the commercials, but maybe he can be. This is also an example to me of how, when it's done right, an old character can be revived on television with a grittier, more realistic presence that makes for better storytelling. I'll cite the example of the revitalized remake of Battlestar Galactica that still holds up quite well after 15 years since it's airing on the Sci-Fi Network. It took the premise of the 1980s series, which was really little more than a ripoff of Star Wars at the time, an attempt to cash in on its popularity, and made it far more relatable and with far deeper meaning to it. And over the course of almost 5 seasons, the arc that you followed for that series made you not only root for these humans, but you rooted for the Cylons too, because the Cylons, as it turned out, were more human than the humans. And that was a great twist for that show. So if you do it right and you put some reality even into the biggest fantasies, you can make it more watchable that way. But you know what? When I think of what I grew up with television, just the 3 networks, and the crap that was on in those days, I mean, every now and then there was a series that went beyond that and actually had some quality to it. And, I'll say Route 66 was one of them. I think The Defenders on CBS was. Bonanza, I think, was a very good series. Gunsmoke was, because they touched upon a lot of subjects that maybe weren't quite appropriate for the times in which they were set, but they certainly were done fairly well within the limits of what network television would do. So every now and then, though, the premium channels really come up with a gem, obviously like The Sopranos on HBO or Ray Donovan on Showtime, and of course Mad Men on AMC, which was a basic cable channel. Sometimes, if it's done well, they can elevate episodic TV into an art form, and I think this new Perry Mason is a worthy successor, and hopefully I'll continue to enjoy it as it goes on. Okay, the second topic for tonight, counting cars. I have a hobby when I go on vacation, is that I will go someplace and get in my car, and if I have to go shopping or something like that, it's about an 8-mile drive from where I vacation to where all the supermarkets are and things like that. Or maybe there's another drive I might take. And what I do is I look at the road, safely of course, but I will also count the cars coming in my direction according to their country of origin, because it's just a kind of a fun way of tracking the way that Americans' tastes in automobile buying have developed over the years. I haven't done it for about 3 years, but I had the opportunity to finally get my equipment squared away. Now, I don't write anything down or I don't take my eyes off the road or anything like that. What I do is I set up a little lavalier microphone on my lapel. Normally I'll wear like a collared shirt or something like that. And I can speak into it, and I have it hooked into this little tape recorder here, this digital recorder. And so as I'm driving, I will watch the cars come at me like that. And of course, I'm looking ahead as I should be, and I'll just say out loud where the car came from, like US, Japan, England, Germany, etc. I don't go into brand names. I don't speak too long because that is distracting. But I make sure that, especially the traffic has to be just about right too. If it's too many cars coming, I can't do it. It's just it takes my attention away from the driving, and I will not risk that. But it's kind of fun to do, and after a while, I will come back and I will set up this sheet here, and I think you can see that I have little scratchings all over that. How do you like this Edwards Jones dome? I got this on a Patriots Rams game in St. Louis, and it actually does have a picture of the thing here and the logo of the St. Louis Rams. I've had this sheet, this thing of paper for a long time. Haven't used it as much. But anyway, what I will do is afterwards I'll listen to the tape that I made, and I will just check off the number of things I say. And that gives me a kind of an outlook of how people are making their choices and what they drive these days. So today I took 2 trips, and one was from downtown Falmouth to Mashpee Commons. And during that trip, I saw 179 cars pass me. 78 of them were of Japanese manufacture, 70 of the United States, 11 from Germany, 15 from Korea, 3 from England, 1 from Sweden, and 1 from Italy. And so that means that there were 43.6% of the cars were Japanese make. 39.1% were American made, and I can guarantee you most of those were either trucks, SUVs, or Jeeps. And I actually said out loud, I wondered if I should continue to count Jeeps as American, because the entire Chrysler Corporation is owned by Fiat nowadays, and of course that's an Italian company, and that's why nobody's buying the cars anymore. But people are buying Jeeps. I mean, I'll tell you, there's just tons of Jeeps down here. Okay, that was one trip. Then, on the second trip, after I realized that my recorder was filled, I didn't know how that happened, except there were about 7 or 8 Patriots press conferences also on this recorder, so I had to erase them all. I was able to get cranked up again at the Falmouth-Mashpee line on Route 151, and took that back to the location, the undisclosed location, as they say. You can probably figure it out by now. By the way, the alarms are set back at the old homestead. On that trip, things were it was a little lighter traffic. 104 cars passed me. 52 of them were of Japanese manufacture, which was exactly 50%. 26% or 27 cars were American made. There were 13 German cars, mostly BMWs, and a few Volkswagens here and there, like what I own. 6 Korean cars, 3 Range Rovers from England, and 3 Swedish cars, Volvos. And you know what? I'm not even sure Volvos are Swedish anymore, but I think they're made by an Indian company, but I'm not absolutely certain. But I just go by what everybody remembers them as anyway. So that was my, I guess my I really have a lot of time on my hands. Anyway, that is it for tonight's episode of North Falmouth Diaries After Dark. I hope you appreciated it. I hope you enjoyed it. I won't go too long on these things because I don't know how much I could download at any one time. I don't know how much memory these things take up. So I would just ask you to keep your eyes peeled for another one. Be posted when the spirit moves me. You'll find them on Facebook or on my website, which is www.theownersbox2020.com. I'd put it up on a graphic right across here, but I can't edit that stuff in right now, and who knows, maybe that'll be something that works down the road if I can get the software. But in the interim, my thanks to all my friends here at Duck and Cover Productions for making this all possible. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Good night, everybody.